You are comfortably zoned with the Zigzag Man in Alameda, California, pushing on the doors of life marked pull and fighting the Unholy Trinity as we go. Big business, organized religion, and government. I am back, the Zigzag Man, comfortably zoned from Alameda, California. Wait a minute. 420 Studios on the road. We are not in Alameda. We are in Florida, West Palm Beach, Florida. And I would like to welcome back a frequent guest who has been my host and hostess, her husband. Bob is with us too. And I'm just so thrilled. Barbara Burton Stewart, actress, podcast person, mother, grandmother, great hostess to me. She said something very, very nice. She says, "Mi casa, su casa." And I'm visiting my old camp buddy and new friend, Bob. First, Barbara. Thanks, Barbara.
Anytime. You know I love having you here.
That's very nice. And Bob, thank you for being my new friend. Are you with me?
I'm with you.
Good. Welcome to Comfortably Zoned. The theme we're going to talk about tonight, I'm waiting for Billy Becker, who is a Greyhound maven. He owns 5 Greyhound puppies. He's a guy I grew up with in Jackson Heights, New York, over in the next building. He or one of his brothers was in my Cub Scout troop, and we got back together as acquaintances on Facebook. And he was nice enough to be on a segment a few months ago. And Barbara listened to the segment, did you not, Barbara, and learned about greyhounds. And they have amongst 3 dogs a greyhound, a terrific greyhound. The greyhound.
Remember her name?
Her name is Corona. Yes, I do, Bob. Surprisingly enough, it's almost surprising I remember anything, because I'm an old wake and baker. It's the only way to put it. I must admit, but I do remember. And the other dog is Lily, and the third dog is Deuce, and they are big dogs, and they have a big, beautiful, spacious area to run, and that's just the backyard. Within half a mile away is a dog run with wonderful people who come down with their dogs in a balmy Florida way. And I never thought I'd say this, because every time I visited Florida, it was for family obligations and occasions, and I never came voluntarily, and I never enjoyed it because it was a hassle and all this. This is my first trip to Florida non-voluntarily, and voluntarily, right? Not by force. It's great, and you guys have been terrific. Bob, tell the people where you took me today, driving around. Just as an example, some of the homes that we saw.
Well, we live in West Palm Beach, and
right.
What I did, I put you in the truck, and we took a ride downtown West Palm Beach, which is on the Intracoastal.
Right.
Intracoastal is a place called Palm Beach. Palm Beach is an area where a lot of the well-to-do live. Basically it's an enclave of very expensive homes.
Right. And when you say well-to-do, you're pretty much understating that, no matter how anybody could interpret well-to-do. Some of the people, some of the homes we saw a Rod Stewart mansion that you wouldn't believe.
No relation.
You know,
unfortunately.
No, well, maybe fortunately.
Yeah.
I would think fortunately, money notwithstanding, the important things. But we saw Trump's estate. I can't even describe it. He's right across from a country club that he bought on one side. He took over, there's two parts of his estate, let alone the country club. It's wealth. It's wealth that's so sickening in a way. It's like...
it's the 1%.
Like, it is truly 1%, and you can see the gluttony, but it isn't... and a lot of these people are old generation money, and they've come into it, and we joke they don't carry currency. They don't deal in anything. They deal on their word. What's the story you told me about the guy who went in to buy an automobile, Bob?
Oh, I've had customers come in when I was in the car dealership, retail business. They never carried money around. Just said, put it on my account. My accountant will pay it at the end of the month. There's no need for money. They don't need it. They don't use it.
They don't use it, but they do imagine to exchange currency. And some of the automobiles we've seen, we counted 10 Bentleys. Now, I can't remember in the past 10 years did I see 3 Bentleys. So
that was in a 5-mile area.
Right, in a 5-mile area. And some of the 4-car garages on these estates, and the cars parked out. Had a Bentley, this guy had a Ferrari parked out. And the boats.
There's some benefits for us middle class people when those people come down. They spend a lot of money, so it puts a lot of people to work. But a really thing where I note is the fact that they'll keep one of those cars for 6 months, and then they sell it or they put it up on consignment to get rid of them. And you can save upwards of 50% the value of those cars, and some of them don't even have 5,000 miles on them.
Right. It's crazy wealth, and you're talking about, yes, they benefit the middle class, but that kind of wealth never seems to trickle down, with apologies to the late Ronald Reagan, the scumbag who's responsible for all of what's going on as far as I'm concerned, in terms of labor, by messing with that union and with the flight airline controllers. It was absolutely criminal, and amongst the other crazy things that he did is governor of California. He closed down mental hospitals, put homeless out there for the first time since the Depression. It's horrible what this country has gone through from the standpoint of the disparity of these guys. We're talking about the differences between what a CEO makes and what the worker makes, and how they begrudge minimum wage. A CEO begrudging minimum wage, and what that does. And Bob, you said something so incredibly with it. You said, if they paid them enough money, they'd get more productivity out of a happy worker who isn't angry all the time because he's considered the working poor, which is the ultimate disrespect for humanity. A guy man or woman trying to work, and you can't earn enough to take care of your family, and you want to work, and you're all working. So, you put it very, very well, Bob, and it was a great tour. Thank you.
Well, if you think,
my pleasure.
If you think of the Walton family, to name one,
right,
and they're really top of my shit list as far as employers go,
Beep.
because we have to subsidize their employees because they don't pay them enough to live.
Oh, Ralph?
Right. Hey, Bill Becker.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I forgot.
Well, okay. Well, good. You remember, too. I'm glad. You're sorry you forgot. I'm glad you remembered. Billy Becker added to our panel. Billy, I'd like you to meet the Stewarts, not Rod Stewart, and not a relation. This is a callback to
neighbor
what we're talking about. But, neighbors with Ron Stewart, practically, for all practical purposes. You live in a beautiful area. This is Barbara and Bob. Barbara Burton Stewart and Bob Stewart from Brooklyn. Billy Becker from Jackson Heights. And the reason I'm having you guys on together is that in the first segment when Billy was here, Billy is the Greyhound dog maven. Billy, 5 dogs? Or is it up to 6?
Right. No,
5 retired Greyhound.
5, right.
And I'm visiting in Florida. I'm visiting these wonderful old friends. I feel like I know Bob all my life. I literally know Barbara from 50 years ago at Kittatinny Camp, and it's probably more than 50.
More, yeah.
54 years. Jeez. I think it was Dorothy Parker says, "Time doth flit." Oh, shit. And it does. It goes fast. They have a wonderful Greyhound, and Barb listened to your show and learned from your show. Any questions, Bob or Barbara listened to the show? Any questions about Greyhound? Anything you guys want to talk about?
I found what you said about their propensity to getting bone cancer very interesting. I did not know that.
There's a vet at Ohio State University, Dr. Kudo, has been doing a lot of research on Greyhound bone cancer. And it was actually at a Greyhound weekend several years ago in Gatlinburg where he was the guest speaker that he's the one that gave us that statistic of 30% of racing Greyhounds end up with it.
Wow.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's probably the only thing that they are prone to, although I find the ones that have other diseases because I look for them.
Like what?
Well, I adopt special needs dogs.
Uh-huh. Well, that's something special, too.
Well, I know everything there is about Greyhounds because I bought Greyhounds for Dummies.
I have it, too.
That is a great
Oh, yeah,
book.
I know, Barbara.
Oh, that's you.
That is a great book. And the first several years that I had my Greyhounds, that book literally was my Bible.
We're going to watch that, too.
We have a pretty big female. She's 88 pounds.
Wow, for a female, that is
pretty
huge.
tall. She's bigger than most males.
Yeah.
And she only ran about 7 or 8 races.
The big ones don't do well on the track.
She sprained her foot.
Uh-huh.
So we adopted her, and
she fits right in with the other dogs.
Excuse me?
She has a very gentle disposition. She just wants a little attention. She walks by, she gets pet, and she relates to the other 2 big, wonderful dogs who have no racing experience.
Right.
Only around here.
Right. Oh, yes, they run around and play. And Barbara
she has a lot of room where she can run.
Just in the backyard. And, it's a good life in Florida. How are things where you are, Billy? Are you doing okay?
I'm doing fine. I'll tell you what, it's unusual that they even run in the backyard. Mine won't.
No,
oh, you got to see. She every time she'll take off. She chases the other dogs. Pushes
she's
them.
She's not a
run.
couch potato.
She gets up there. She runs at least a minimum of once a day.
Okay. Well, I have my 2 females will run. My 3 males. One of them will. 2 of them forget, but one of them is probably because of his age. He's 11 and a half already.
Wow. Yeah, I heard they lived till about 14.
13, 14, yeah.
Well, I actually had one. I adopted her when she was almost 14. She lived to be past 15.
Wow. That's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
She was almost 14 when I adopted her.
The interesting thing, the vet had a discussion with the vet when we got her, and she said that the physiology is more of that of a racehorse than a dog.
Well, actually probably closer to a cheetah.
Yes.
They don't sit down.
Yeah, this one, do your dogs sit down?
Not usually.
Okay.
Most of them
can't
don't.
sit. She can't.
No, they can't sit because of their physiology.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's not a comfortable position for them.
And when she's down on all fours, she has about 5-inch gap from the ground on her hind quarter.
They look like a sphinx.
Yeah.
And when she's sleeping, she looks like a dinosaur.
Oh, okay.
They're great dogs. We're having problems down here trying to get through the legislature to get rid of the dog tracks. But the problem is
not to get rid of the dog tracks, to get rid of the dog
the dog tracks, the racing.
Yeah,
racing.
The problem
it's to report every injury. I've read about that. Most of my dogs come from a woman in Ocala, Florida, Greyhound Adoptions of Florida. And that's because she takes in special needs dogs. So although I'm in Tennessee, I adopt my dogs from her.
Oh, you're in Tennessee?
Yeah, I'm right outside Memphis, and I volunteer with a group in West Memphis, Arkansas.
We all four have escaped New York.
I left New York a long time ago.
Right, as did I, and really, Barbara and Bob have been gone from New York a long time too. We're pioneers. I was telling another guest on the next segment, Kit Pogorski, that another New York native, that it takes a special kind of person who, with a pioneer spirit, to leave New York. Many are born and raised all their lives, wouldn't think of setting up roots anywhere else. And I admire people like myself, of course, because nobody loves me better, who will take that pioneer spirit and go with it. And life's an adventure. And
actually, I just hated commuting into Manhattan.
I did that for many years. I don't miss that at all.
Exactly, right.
Okay. I want to ask all three of you, what is the number one, we'll go in order, what is the thing the turning point you said, I'm not going to live in New York anymore? Was it that, or was it opportunity elsewhere? Let's start, ladies first, with Barbara.
Well, mine was that Bob came home one day and said, I found a place to open a store in New Jersey.
Right.
We went to New Jersey before
All right, I apologize publicly, Barbara.
Thank you.
Okay.
It's now on the record. Boy, I can't get out of it now.
No, this is going to be on there for a long time. These podcasts never go away. It's cathartic.
That's it.
I heard that. Lily heard that too.
How about you, Billy? What was there a moment where you just said, "Oi"? I've had enough.
I was in advertising, so I was working in Midtown Manhattan, and I managed to get a job out on Long Island. So I started commuting against traffic, which was delightful. But the company only 9 months after I joined the company, they went bankrupt, which meant facing going back into Midtown Manhattan. And I just said no.
Right.
So I spent all of my energy looking for jobs elsewhere. And a company in Memphis, Tennessee, made me an offer that basically matched what I was earning in New York.
Wow.
What's Memphis like for? May I ask what Memphis is like for an ex-New Yorker? Is it south up to your eyeballs?
Well, when I came down here for the interview, and I knew some of the people at the TV station, so it's not like I didn't know anybody in Memphis. But I went into the company and started running into people that I had worked with in New York that have already been down here.
Blaze the trail.
That also left because they said, I'm not doing it again?
Well, they all loved it. As a matter of fact, of all of them, and there were probably half a dozen, only one went back to New York.
Oh, well,
we moved south.
It's a different kind of life. It's a different way of life. The South is now. I don't know what part of Florida you're in, but if you're southern,
we're in the north.
We're in the north. Yeah, we're in
We're south
New York
of Jacksonville.
South. We're New York South.
Well, I was going to say because if you're in South Florida, that's southern New York.
Well, that's what I said. We're in South New York.
Okay, fine. Well then.
You're not. Somebody said you're in the north. Did you say that, Bob? You're not in the north.
Yeah, yes.
He meant not in the north of Florida. He meant in the north.
Right.
Where in Florida are you?
West Palm Beach.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah. I used to work at the track at West Palm.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
The Roonies.
The Roonies. Exactly. But anyway, so that's southern New York. If you're in northern Florida, then you're really in the South.
Well, we did live in Port St. Lucie.
That's sort of.
Oh, the furthest south, the furthest south southern city is Jacksonville.
Right, that's probably about right because
the
woman that I adopt my dogs from in Ocala is an ex-New Yorker.
Yeah, Jacksonville. Jacksonville's the end of the South.
Well, if you're in the Panhandle of Florida, that's the South.
Yeah, there are still areas north of us that are south of Jacksonville that are. I mean, if you're in the center, you're not in the north. You know, if you're in
Orlando and all that, there's a lot of redneck stuff going on up in Orlando.
Oh yeah.
Disneyland notwithstanding, and Disneyland contributes to it too because they are the most right-wing sons of bitches in the entire world, and they're anti-gay and anti-this. You can't hold hands with someone
in Disney World.
In Disney, yeah, they had people thrown out. There's a big suit in California with Disneyland for them, but it's the same, same.
Well, I don't know if it's the same because I never heard that. I heard of other things, but I never heard that.
Orlando was a very, very, very right.
Orlando, but not Disney.
Oh, I don't know about Disney, but I know Orlando.
Disney is very right-wing. Yes, the whole corporation is very. What I call Meshuggah. Now, you can look that up in the Yiddish. For those of you out there, it must be a Yiddish to English translation. Not literally crazy, but not literally sane. Meshuggah.
Crazy.
But, okay. Then I didn't want to be the first to say it. I always have my guests say it. That's even better. You can't. Because I could be found and people.
That's really the South. But the South it's a different lifestyle. It's a much slower lifestyle. Not at work. I mean, at work we were competing with New York companies.
Well, at work they wanted to pay us Southern pay, but they wanted us to work Northern work.
I didn't have that because, like you said, he matched my New York salary, so I was getting New York pay, working New York hours. But the difference was that when you walked out of work, you were in a whole different world. And as a matter of fact, the company itself had all kinds of benefits, and this was back in the 70s, that you didn't hear about. I mean, we had, this was all company paid for. We had a bowling team, a girls softball team, a guys softball team. We had a gym in the building, a running track.
Yeah, I had that in Georgia. So that must be.
Exactly right.
Yeah. Because I lived in Georgia, and talk about living in the South, that was the South.
Mm-hmm. Right, exactly, right. And that's what Memphis is.
Okay. But we could all agree that we miss New York pizza.
Yeah.
No,
well,
living in West Palm Beach, she doesn't miss it.
Okay. Bob misses it. Bob misses it. We had pizza the other night that was very close to New York pizza. Thank you, Bob.
You're welcome.
All right.
But you have to order it right.
Down there, you really don't have to miss too much of the New York food because you have it. Because I lived in Boynton Beach for 20 years. And down there you have it. I just didn't like South Florida, so I came back to Memphis.
Oh, so you didn't go
That's
from New
something
York?
I don't think I could do.
I went from New York to Memphis, from Memphis to Houston, from Houston to South Florida, and then back to Memphis.
I don't think I could leave Florida. I left Florida and went to Georgia and couldn't wait to get back.
See, I couldn't wait
Florida.
to get back to Florida.
I'm down in Florida for like 2 or 3 days, and it's my first trip to Florida where I didn't feel obligated to come in any way or for some sort of family event or occasion. And I'm looking at it with a different eye. It's my ultimate goal is to be bicoastal, at least bicoastal. And I'm looking at this place as, you know,
possibility?
There's something. I'm an old Jew, and there's something.
Oh my God, Barbara!
What a shock, right? And it's something calls old Jews to Florida, and I never knew what it was. There's a calling out there, but old Jews and their parents.
Yeah, but what's happening is we're now the parents.
Right. Hey,
they call it God's waiting room.
We're the old parents, man.
When Bill Becker is my guest, I have to remind that when I got out of high school, I went to open a checking account, and the teller of the bank, it was Chemical Bank, you reminded me last segment, was your mom, who helped me open the first checking account I ever opened. And
well, that's neat.
Yeah,
that's local. There's no such thing as local anymore.
Right. It was an experience growing up in the Heights where we grew up. We had 16 co-op buildings in a 4 or 5 block radius with the public school that we all went to and a big old schoolyard, they call it the park, in the middle of, and sitting areas, little miniature parks in the middle of the buildings. And it was post-war 1950, I think 51, was it, when you were one of the first tenants in that?
Yeah, we moved in January 52.
Yeah, it was 52, okay, and we were obviously shortly after, we were the next building over. And it was a trip. We had literally hundreds of acquaintances to choose from, not hundreds maybe, and they all brothers and sisters of different ages and same teachers all the way, down. And we're in a little middle-class Jewish ghetto in Queens. It was
my cousins had my mother. Well, my cousin's parents. My mother's cousin. My mother's first cousin had a store under the L. What street was the L?
Where?
Roosevelt Avenue.
Jackson Heights.
Oh, I know.
Roosevelt Avenue.
Flushing.
No, Roosevelt Avenue.
Roosevelt.
Was Roosevelt?
Roosevelt was a big. There was a train.
Absolutely.
Wasn't there? An elevator.
What was the cross street on that?
I have no idea. Are you kidding?
Oh.
But the name of the store was Clark's, and it was there for a long, long time.
What did it sell? What did they sell?
Women's clothes.
Oh,
it had to be 82nd Street.
Yeah, probably.
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah.
It was under the L. That's all I remember.
Yeah.
The only thing that we get involved with when it comes to Queens is it even part of Queens? Elmhurst.
Elmont.
Yeah.
Elmont.
No, that's the island. I think it's right at the edge.
Yeah, Elmont is actually Nassau County.
Yeah,
that's
okay. where we
right.
go for funerals.
It's across. It's on the east side of the Cross Island.
It's right on the border. It's right where the horse track is.
Right.
That's
right.
correct. Belmont. Yeah.
That's where we go for our funerals.
And that's where we bury ourselves.
Uh-huh.
Right. Well, you don't have to be dead for that. I can pay testament. Lordy, Lordy, Lordy. Don't bury this man yet. He's still alive. He just has a funny way of showing it. That was very spiritual on Easter. This is Easter. And more importantly, it is 420, my son's birthday, Philip Satin Tyko, born in 1990. Yeah, it's his birthday today.
Happy birthday.
Yeah, happy birthday, big guy. I called you this morning. It was 12 o'clock my time, 9 o'clock your time.
And it took all day for your dad to tell us it was your birthday.
Right. Well, no, I called him, and it was too early because what kid wants to get up before the crack of noon on Easter Sunday? And he wasn't going to church, that's for sure. I asked him about religion once. He says, Dad, I'm a pastafarian.
A what?
Kids today, a pastafarian. They worship pasta.
Oh.
And it's on the there's a cult of kids. I'm serious. It's on the internet, and he says it has as much credence as anything else. And
he's right.
He's probably right. You can't argue that. It's his own mythology. Why not invent it? Anyway, guys, terrific interview. Thanks for coming back, Billy, and I hope you will on a regular basis. And here's a public thing. Thank you, Bob. Thank you so much for being my friend, Barbara. It's terrific. You've been so supportive over the years. And let's see, you want to sing a Kittatinny Camp song, a little part of a Kittatinny Camp song?
A very little part.
All right, start.
Nobody wants to hear my voice.
Oh, okay. Well, then, if no one wants to hear your voice, I'd get complaints from the FCC if we were FCC involved, which we're not, which is the reason I can say the things that I do. Thank you, everybody. We're going to go over and out. And to everybody, I implore people at the close of every segment to keep their humor dry and their dreams wet. Keep your kids out of recruiting station and off the laps of clerics that wear dresses. And keep on keeping on. Have a great one.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Good night. I am back, comfortably zoned from the 420 studios in Alameda, California. Wait a minute. We're bi-coastal. I'm bi-coastal. The Zigzag Man, comfortably zoned, 420 studios, is mobile enough to have traveled to Florida. I'm in West Palm Beach, and ironically, my guest is in Alameda, California. Kit Pogorski. Am I pronouncing that correctly, Kit?
Yes,
All right, that's my major accomplishment for the day.
Friends call me Kitski.
Piggy.
I'm
sorry.
Kitski.
Oh, gotcha. Kitski. Well, I've had a hitski today or two.
Well, there you go.
So there I go, and that's one of the things. We are, and it is approximately 4:20 on Sunday night, a very, very high holy day, because it is the day that my son Philip Tyko was born 24 years ago on 4:20.
No.
Yeah, cool. And at that time, I had been a kind of a wake and baker, if the expression still stands, for like 25 years at that time, and didn't know the expression 420. It was 1990. And,
Me neither.
Yeah. This is something new. Yeah.
Look. I think in Brooklyn, when you mention 420, for some among them or among Jews, it's Hitler's birthday.
Oh, wow, that's right. I had heard that. So it wasn't something to be celebrated. But in 1990...
No, wait a second. It's a double holiday. For me, it's a double holiday. This is the day that he was born, and on the 30th is the day that he died. He took poison and died, which is another time to celebrate. Both days, you light up a joint and wish him well.
Right. Wish him well. Yeah, I wish him well. I wish him well.
Yeah.
All right, kid. Part of this show is selfless self-promotion.
Oh, there you go.
So, and I asked my guests to promote. Tell me what you got going. Tell me.
Okay.
Yeah. So take it, Kit.
Okay. Well, let's see. I'm 65 right now, and when I hit 60, I looked around and I discovered that sports, major league sports, football, baseball, and stuff like that, basketball, anything's totally meaningless to me. Religion, Judaism, Catholicism, Christianity, Buddhism, all of it. I couldn't relate to any of it. So what I did was I started a church. And at the time, I had a three-legged dog. And the dog was sort of perfect in its imperfection. So I named my church the Church Three-Legged Dog, Church of Ultimate Imperfection.
Okay,
and,
which encompasses all of us. We should all get to.
I elected myself as a prophet, and I started a website, which I got about 40 members to be members of this, and I called them, what do you call those people? Apostles.
Right,
and,
well, of course.
Now, this sounds loony. Of course it sounds loony, but I'm an artist, and basically I'm using this as an art project. Do you realize how hard it is to get a pope to be a member of my cockamamie church? You know?
I didn't realize that. Of course not.
I ask all kinds of people.
I'm new to all of this, and so you do have an eclectic group of folks that worship, because we're all imperfect, so we, on some level, all qualify.
Well, no, that's not really is. Nobody has to worship. This is what do you call it? A church where you can basically hang on to whatever religion gets you through the night, as it were. Right. But I feel that living your life is enough of worship. You know, I'm an astute atheist, and I come from a whole line of atheists out there. You know, like my mother was a Jew, but she was an atheist. She brought me up as an atheist. My father was a Roman Catholic who particularly hated the church because he grew up in a Catholic orphan home in the 20s in Brooklyn, St. Joseph. You know, isn't that a kick in the head?
Oh, wow! So you have the best of all worlds, really.
Yeah. For the earliest time, I heard nothing but crap about the Catholic Church, this and that, and this was way before you heard about priests boogering children and nuns stealing babies, and you know whatever else is coming out about the Catholic Church, you know.
Right.
But
and so he was instinctive enough to really have a taste of it and realize what it was about, even back then.
I think he married my mother, who was a communist Jew, because just to get back at him. Because in the old days, they used to tell people that the Jews were responsible for killing Christ, even though Christ was a Jew.
Yeah, the old days are last Thursday, by the way. There's 40% of Catholics believe that Jews killed.
There you go.
So that one's going to be hard to dispel over the long run.
Even though they have a good pope.
A lot of people think it was the Roman soldiers, but go figure. You know, it
was the politicians at the time. I mean, it's like like me blaming you for it or whatever. You know.
Right. What would you pass on to your kids in terms of what you got from your parents?
What's that now?
What would be the first thing you'd pass on to your kids from what you received from your parents in terms of ideology, philosophy?
Let's see, my philosophy. Well,
what is it that you'd like to instill? I don't even know if you have children, but if you had children,
I've had 3 sons.
Okay, what did you, number one thing you learned from your parents that you're happy you learned, that you have great gratitude for, that you pass on, that you think makes sense to make your kids what they will be? Well, actually, my wife won't let me do that because my parents raised, they had 4 kids. I'm the oldest of 4. And they grew us sort of like weeds. They gave us a certain amount of food, never helped us in school or anything, and when they did, it was awful, you know? Okay, so conversely, what you're passing on is that you will give your kids the things that you didn't get, and You'll let them have the food too. That's kind of nice.
Better than that. Better than that. I got a better wife than my mother was. Put it that way.
Okay. That's a very good way. What is her name? And, will she be highly complimented? I'm sure by that. That's a very nice thing to say.
I talk to her every day. Every day.
That's nice.
Yeah. I'm very loyal to my wife. She's great.
That's nice, which means you're loyal to yourself. Because
I try to be. Yeah. Try to be honest too.
Yes. Now, do you have church functions? Do you have little picnics and what have you? Do you all get together and?
No. That sounds like too much of an obligation.
Okay.
Occasionally I have parties, but not religious parties. But since I've elected myself to be a prophet, I don't have people doing long pilgrimages to ask me my views, except for you right now, putting me on this this segment.
Well, this is a segment of Comfortably Zoned Radio. I don't know if I properly introduced it. And we are my show is the idea of there are a whole bunch of different folks out there that are
good time, especially here in Alameda.
There are a few folks that are interesting enough to have a segment. You're one of those.
Yeah.
I was just going to say there are a lot of interesting people, but they may not be interesting to me.
There you go. Well, wait a minute.
And a good segment, as far as I'm concerned, has to interest me first.
Well, there you go.
55 years old, you got to this point in life by hook or crook. Let's put it that way. What didn't come easy to come from whatever upbringing we all had, we're all in common, to evolve to what we are today. Who influenced you between your parents' influence and where you got today? Do you have any mentors that you could draw on besides your wife, who seems to be right with it for you?
Oh, yeah, she's great.
Okay.
Huh?
No, go ahead.
She's somebody I met when she was 17 years old, when I was sort of homeless. When my car was broken down in San Diego, I came upon this girl, and she was really sweet, living with her roommate. And at the time, she called herself Ghana, and she lived with her roommate named Rhea.
I never call myself.
She spelled her name as Ghana.
Okay. Hey, does she want to get on and say hello before we close this wonderful segment out? Would she like to say hello and be on the air?
Jana, would you like to say hello?
Sure. Hi.
Hey, hi, Janet. My name is Zig. I'm the old Zigzag man from Alameda in Florida for this segment. But nice to meet you on the phone, and your husband speaks very highly of you, and that's a nice thing.
It is a nice thing.
She's a Facebook friend of mine, too, so you probably could find her on Facebook.
Absolutely. I hope you'll befriend me, and I hope the listeners will remind them to befriend the show, Comfortably Zoned Radio on Facebook. You can go through me.
There you go.
Zig Tyko, and befriend Kit and his lovely wife, because they have a good spirit. And in keeping with that, you're progressive politically, and part of what I do on this show is I fight what I call the Unholy Trinity, which is big business, government, and organized religion. And together they're the Unholy Trinity, and they are choking us and combining with each other to choke us, either all three together or two at a time.
It's not just us, or you just feeling this. It's that Princeton University just put out report that we don't live in a democracy anymore. We live in an oligarchy, where our votes mean one thing, and what the 2% or the 1% really want.
Right.
This is Princeton University, not just me. I mean, some great wackos in New Jersey. I don't know.
Yeah, we're getting these things. Let me ask you a question, Kit. How did you escape New York? You were brought up with, we both have a lot of the same roots. I used to go to Rockaway for summers.
Yeah.
Well, Rockaway High School.
I graduated. Well, I got out of Far Rockaway High School. I didn't quite graduate. I had to go to night school to put it together. But it was basically at the time of the Vietnam War or end of the Vietnam War, and basically I was with my first wife, and she was always telling me how wonderful California was, and all. So I went to California, and basically I never went back. It was that way. And I came back to get them, but they didn't stay with me, But it was Mayor Beam. Mayor Beam was the person who drove me out of New York. I mean, this guy was he was a twit, He was a little midget guy, and he was corrupt as you could possibly be in New York, and things.
Which is saying something. That's like on the All-Star team, by the way. Because that's right up there with Chicago in terms of corruption, both police departments. And so and you just had enough, and you decided, because I
couldn't find a job
in New York too.
Yeah, I couldn't find a job to pay my life.
Yeah, it's very, very it's a pioneer spirit that some of us have and some of us don't have, because a lot of people born and raised in Brooklyn never leave Brooklyn for their entire lives.
Right.
So to be able to, and I mean not even sometimes to go into Manhattan.
Exactly. Oh yeah.
Literally born in Brooklyn, grow up, go to school, have a life.
My grandfather was a diehard Brooklynite. He only went to White Lake, wherever that is in upstate New York, and came back. But the idea of going to California was, gee whiz, Indians would get you,
Right. I had uncles who thought if you went to Florida, boy, you're going to the sticks, and what the hell are you doing?
Yeah. It was. It's the South, Do
you have any Rockaway stories you can tell me about the beach or the board? Do you remember the boardwalk? And do you remember talking briefly off the air that I have roots on Beach 20?
Really?
My mother's uncle owned some bungalows, and there were a couple of years when I didn't go to summer camp, and it's about a block from the beach. Wonderful resort area, just at the tip of Brooklyn, basically, between Brooklyn and Queens, that type of thing.
I lived in Auburn, which is 55th Street.
Oh,
so,
wow.
55th.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like a lot from 20th, but it's a little walk, and they used to have the skeet balls. Remember skeet balls on the boardwalk?
It favors amusement. I worked there.
Oh, wow.
I worked for old man Faber, and it was a thing. I got to think about it is that I feel really bad when really poor people waste that much money on things. I was very, I'd call it righteous at the time. That was one of the things that separated me from Faber's amusement park. You get these people in rags, and they'd be out there trying to get one of these stupid Cupid dolls or whatever.
Right, and you save up enough tickets. You save up 5,500 tickets.
More than that. I mean, the paper's worth more than the
right.
Right. Rock. Yeah, I mean, it was just unreal and stuff,
But this was before any kind of lottery stuff went up, and everybody there's a gambling mentality of winning. And people get hooked, and but as kids, we go down there and get good at that. And
I was the guy with the belt and long fish hair, and I went in there, and I would do it. Let's see, I think I worked Thursday to Sunday or something like that, and and after that, I was working at the Brooklyn Day Camp there in Far Rockaway and stuff. You know, when my aunt and uncle, when they knocked down Playland, they built a housing project there, and my aunt and uncle lived there, you know?
Yeah, well, you know, we're having memories of this is really funny. I'm in Florida, you're in Alameda. I generally live in Alameda. And we're talking about New York. Wherever one goes, New York, if you're born and raised in New York, it's in you.
Yeah.
You don't lose it, and there's a certain something, a certain spirit that makes it cool jewel. Let's put it that way.
It's every other generation wants to take the big leap. I mean, I'm second and third generation Brooklynite and stuff, and they all came from Eastern Europe and Austria and Germany and Poland and Lithuania and all these places out there where kin showed up from, you know, and you know. When I got into the spirit of looking up who I was and where I came from, I always thought my father's family were a bunch of knuckle draggers and stuff. But they turned out not to be, they were knuckle draggers, but their kin weren't knuckle draggers. I mean, the guy who wrote Quo Vadis, Heinrich Sienkiewicz, you know? Right. He's actually kin to me. He's actually a great uncle or a great granduncle of some sort. And on that side of the family, I even have a Cossack who became a butcher in the Bronx in the 20s and 30s. You know, my grandmother's father, you know.
Yeah, I'm sure if we go back, we'd have relatives from the old country as well, relatives and friends. And I wish they would have had Facebook in those days, so these immigrants, like my father and grandfather and my grandparents, could have kept up.
Your first generation?
Yeah, well, my mother was first, my mother was second generation. My father was first generation. He escaped Poland to Brussels and Cuba and went all over, escaping the war and got here.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. My mother's generation, my grandfather came over like 1910 or something like that. Just escaping different, escaping like Jews do. We escape. We tend to have to migrate. We tend to have to migrate. They don't like us very much because, of course, Kid and I own half of the money in the world. We're just two Jews. All the other Jews own the rest of the money in the world.
Of course.
That's public perception. So they don't like us for that. And
wait. I have this joke when I find people out there who firmly believe that all Jews are rich. I tell them that when you become 50 or 60 years old, you get your Jew card, which means when you get your Jew card, that means you got an ATM card to tap into all that money that Jews have pulled away from good Christians, or the code word, the Goya.
Right.
And with this ATM card, my Jew card, I am fabulously wealthy. I mean,
I'll bet there are people that look at you and they kind of nod their head for a few minutes.
Yeah, well, the thing about it, the stupider they are, the more they believe. It's unbelievable.
Of course, and there are a number of them. So, hey, Kid, will you come back on a regular basis and just check in and be funny and interesting as you have been this segment? And I'm going to end it like I'm going to end the segment because you may never have heard the way I end a show. Yeah. I implore you and I implore everybody out there to keep your humor dry, keep your dreams wet,
big guy.
Your kids out of military recruiting stations.
Totally.
So very, very bad, and it changes the family atmosphere forever in so many ways. They come back different, or they don't come back, or they come back and you can't treat them because we got wars going on. Please don't fall into it. Don't be fodder. And,
absolutely.
And your dad would have appreciated this because you.
My father told me that if I ever thought about joining the Army, he'd break my arm. And he was an 11-year veteran.
Well, you're talking here to somebody who had to join the Air Force to stay out of, or during Vietnam, because I wasn't going to look too good in the color uniform that gets blood on it. I don't remember.
Well, you weren't as creative as I was. Put it that way.
Well, that I'm sure I wasn't in some ways. You got it over me. That's why you're a guest. If I was, so I'll check to the power kit. You're more creative than I am. But here's the third or fourth thing that I want to implore you and your guests to do. If you're looking for child care, stay away from a cleric wearing a dress. Have the kids sit on somebody else's lap.
This is another show, man. This is another show. You don't want me to go into my I talk to people who send their kids to parochial school, and I say, "What are you, crazy?"
See, that's a way to put it. Yeah, it's an honest way to put it. What are you, crazy? Just
don't you love your kids?
That's very direct. Proper communication might be, let's talk about this for a second.
I don't believe in public school.
You don't say that. You say, what are you, crazy? Yeah. I admire that. That's good. The direct approach is always the better approach, because a lot of logic escapes. If they're thinking about it in the first place, logic escapes them. So you have to shock them, like, what are you, crazy? And then they'll look up, and they'll go, hey, you calling me crazy? I don't want to communicate with you. Oh, what a loss for me. And they're gone from your life. You say it nice. You weed out the folks that aren't going to be on your side, and you go from there. What are you, crazy? Say it with a Yiddish accent. Are you nuts?
Don't you know? Don't you know? Your kid can get hurt.
Don't run with scissors. Why don't you tell the kid to run with scissors over to the priest and sit on his lap? Run with scissors, take an eye out, then sit on his lap.
My father had a hard-on for nuns. The ones in the penguin suits. Oh, my God.
Yes. All right, kid. We've explored some of the folks out there. We've confronted them on their belief system. We've told them ours. We realized that a lot of people are just going to go, hey, why do I listen to this thing? Gives me heartburn, makes me think every Sunday.
That's a cool one.
Comes on. I had a thought. It gives me a headache. Makes me cheer up.
That's why I started a church. That's the reason why I started a church. It seemed like the most logical thing to do. Preach.
Right.
When I start ranting, it's not I'm a private citizen. No, I'm a prophet of the Church of the Three-Legged Dog.
Kid, do you have a page on Facebook for your church?
I do. If you look up Church Three-Legged Dog, I think I still got a Facebook page there, or it's a YouTube page.
Oh, even better. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Because YouTube will stay on there forever.
I hope so. Yeah.
And all these shows go directly from Spreaker to YouTube, so you can find them, Comfortably Zoned Radio. And,
is that what it's called?
Yeah, so you'll come back, and we'll do this again soon. And when I get back to Alameda, we'll have a cup of coffee and maybe
that'd be good.
We'll roll one and smoke it the fuck up. That's the only.
Are you going to be back by 4:30?
I'll be back in Alameda by 4:30.
Yeah.
Oh, but no.
Not the April 30th.
No. Yes, I know what you mean now, but no, I probably won't. I'll be back by then.
Because now we can celebrate his death.
We can celebrate Hitler's death.
Right.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Everyone celebrates Hitler's birth,
Hey, I got so many. There are so many dead people for me to celebrate.
I don't do that.
I don't do that. But Hitler's one. I don't even like to think of the name, let alone celebrating. Anyway, thanks, man. We're going to go over and out, and you'll come back soon. Thank you, wife, for coming on. And everybody, keep on keeping on.
Okie-dokie.
I am back. The Zigzag Man, Alameda, California, 420 Studios. Oh, no, man. I'm in Florida, comfortably zoned with my dear friends Barbara and Bob Stewart. Barbara Burton Stewart from Kittatinny Camp. Known her 54 years from way back, and they and another camp friend are helping me become bi-coastal. You gotta start somewhere. They're giving me a little place to hang and make some roots and arrange it so I can be what I want to be, an East Coast person, a West Coast person, and have the best of all worlds. And that's what I go for, the best of all worlds. With that, I got the best of all worlds as a regular contributor and a sports maven in Wayne Unger. Welcome, Wayne Unger. We're not bi-coastal this time. We are on the same coast, two different cities. So you're in Staten Island.
I'm in Staten Island. You're a little warmer than I am, but it's okay. I don't complain about the weather. I take it as it is.
You had a posting on Facebook that just broke me up. The other day you said, if you're alive, I don't want to hear any complaints about the weather.
Yeah. I say, if you're breathing, I don't want to hear you complain about the weather. It's just like, never ends.
When you put things into proportion, one thing about being a little bit up there, long in the tooth, as they say, kind of a geese, if the truth be known on my part, but you start to put things into perspective of the little things don't matter quite as much. I know, though, that living in New York, weather-wise, you're not there for the weather. You're there for a lot of different things, but there are few and far between really nice days, spring and fall, and the rest of the year is either very, very cold, or very, very hot and humid and muggy. And sometimes spring and fall don't last very long. They could only last for literally a week or two. And sometimes you don't get spring and fall. You go right from winter to, am I right? Winter to summer. And
it's true that you do, but you know what? In the overall scheme of things, our winters are nowhere near as harsh as many, many, many other parts of the country, and our summers, there are hotter places,
right,
in all over the country as well, and so I think we have a good balance. I think we have a nice balance. I think we've just become a spoiled society.
Well, I agree with you that we're a spoiled society, but I grew up in New York, and I remember that Newtown drag where we walked from our neighborhood in Jackson Heights to Newtown High School, which was probably about a mile, which isn't a long walk, but there were days when it was colder than a witch and colder than I can describe. And there were some muggy days. I didn't get to spend many summers in New York City, but I spent one or two before going in the Air Force, and it's not a pleasant place in the summer. There's just no way around it. I can't tell you there is. What gets me is people that have places, live in places like California or Florida, that complain when the weather isn't just perfect, as if it isn't great all the time. But there are bitches, and that was very well put. Don't be complaining about the small stuff, because life is short and life is precious. So, on to sports. What's been good? The Mets are playing some pretty good ball, I have to admit.
Mets aren't playing bad at all.
And they won a game today against the Braves in extra innings that they needed to win to put a stop to the bleeding because they lost a couple 3 in a row, and this was a nice way.
I mean, they had taken like 3 in a row from Arizona. I think they lost 2 to. I don't know if they played Thursday, but listen.
No, it was 2 to Atlanta, right? And interdivision, that was today was a nice one.
Yes. So.
What's with the Yank? What's with Jeter?
I don't know. They took him out early today. You know what? I haven't even had a chance to dig into everything. Besides, you know what? We're not going to know exactly what's going on till the morning anyway. They'll probably he's probably going to fly up to New York. If he can't if they don't think he can go tomorrow, or Tuesday, they'll probably fly him up to New York for an MRI. And but who knows? I think
it's sad. It's sad. I've seen this a lot of times. Like when Willie Mays got old and what have you, and old by baseball standards. I want you to know, looking back, young man, 38, 40 years old, you're considered to be old, and that's one of the crazinesses of sports and what have you. But it's sad when you see guys that, especially Jeter, had never had injury problems, and all of a sudden, it's. I had even thought a few years ago that if he could keep it together a little bit, he might be in a position to break Pete Rose's record down the line. I remember putting that on a blog 3 or 4 years ago. And
he had 1 year where he missed a few months. I think it might have been a separated shoulder, and he's had a few things here and there. But generally, you know what? He's had a really, really healthy career.
Right.
And
very, very solid. Not by all standards, not a superstar. He'll make the Hall of Fame. He won't be a first-tier Hall of Famer, but as a solid guy and as a solid example.
He'll be a first-ballot Hall of Famer.
Oh, no question about that. No question.
Okay,
but you.
And all right. Well, in the overall scheme of things, considering his whole career,
right.
Besides Honus Wagner, who can you say was a better shortstop career-wise?
Well, Louis Aparicio, Ernie Banks.
Not even close. Not even in the same building as far as those conversations go. I'm talking about the whole body of work. Not even in the same. Forget about it.
Well,
that's like. I thought you would at least come to me with like.
Well, I came to you with 500 I came to you with 500 home runs and one of the slickest. No, Ernie Banks.
Okay, Ernie Banks. All right, wait. Ernie Banks was not a slick fielding shortstop, number one.
No, but Aparicio was. Aparicio and Nellie Fox were absolute magic around shortstop. And they remember the Yankees were winning every year. White Sox won it, put it together in '59. And then he went on to Boston and played very well in Boston and won with Boston. Louis was a base stealer, a leadoff guy. I'm not taking anything away from Jeter, but you certainly can't not put those guys.
Oh, well, first of all, Nellie Fox was a second baseman, okay?
Right. They were the combination. Nellie Fox was terrific.
Okay, but you can't. But Nellie Fox has nothing to do with shortstop.
No, but the teamwork, the keystone combination, and that's why that's underrated. How guys would play together for years, same infield, McMillan and Casco and those guys, and Bowlings and these guys would play in the 50s and 60s before free agency.
Okay, well, so if anything, you got to give a heads up to Jeter, who played with such wonderful fielding second basemen as Chuck Knobloch and Alfonso Soriano.
That's true. I will give you that. But when you judge either a shortstop or a second baseman, you like to look for the guys who play together as a combination for a lot of years. Richardson, Kubek, Richardson. You want to talk about it?
Yes. But if the conversation is greatest shortstop of all time, then
he ain't Honus Wagner. Although I'm the guy who said he's got over 3,000 hits, he's solid. I'm not taking anything away from him, but he was merely solid as a shortstop. Not to take anything away from being solid, he didn't have a tremendous amount of range per se.
Okay, that's all he didn't have was a tremendous. He didn't have a tremendous amount of range, probably more going to his left than to his right. He did pretty. You know what? He made spectacular plays actually going to his left. Yeah, not the best. For some reason he just uncannily got the balls going to his right and made that great throw, that turnaround throw from the hole. He was great going back on fly balls.
He's terrific. And I have a picture somewhere on a blog. If you go to Pushing on the Doors of Life, Mark Pull, and get into my blog of Jeter diving into the stands, literally level with the ground after a foul ball.
Oh yes, I remember that. That was against the Red Sox, I believe. And then of course, and then you've got that unbelievable play, that presence of mind he had to back up the catcher and toss the ball to Jorge to tag out Jeremy Giambi at home in the playoffs.
Oh, that's right. That kills me. I lived in Oakland for a lot of years, and that still haunts Oakland fans. That was absolutely. Giambi didn't slide. I mean,
yes.
Kidding me? Really? Don't slide? Yeah, that was not good. I've become kind of attached to Oakland. The Oakland days, I've inherited them. I've lived out there for so long that, and it wasn't easy because I liked the Angels a lot, and always did from back, from the original Angels. But I'm going to miss you. The Yankees Williams is gone, Posada is gone, Rivera is gone, and could not have asked for those four guys would have been nice to go into the hall together down the road, but that's not going to happen.
Yeah, you know what? I don't see Posada
I think Williams
or Pettit making it. I don't. Maybe years from now with a veterans committee, but that they probably won't make it. Jeter and Mariano are first ballot Hall of Fame.
Absolutely. Mariano is, as a baseball fan and not necessarily a Yankee fan by any stretch, it was almost a privilege to watch this guy. So he come out and I look at him and say, holy shit, I'm watching one of the far and away the best relief pitcher that ever was in terms of big games and all that. And it's a privilege to watch somebody like that. You say, well, you like to call your kid over and say, look at this. But then I remember in 1995 calling my kid over. By the way, it's his birthday. Happy birthday, Philip, the 420 baby, 1990.
Happy birthday, Philip.
Yeah, my kid is all grown up. Emptiness syndrome abounds. In any event, I'd call him over and I'd say, watch Sosa and McGuire. Yeah, watch this. They're going for it. And it turns out that what we were watching was just simply not reality. And Barry Bonds and all that. And Nolan Ryan, for sure. and Clemens and all that. So I feel ripped off by that, by baseball.
Well, I you know what? I tell you, it's funny. I remember when Canseco came out with his first book, and like nobody took him seriously. Everybody thought that, but you know what? But now you got he's got some credibility now, and I forgot what the number was, but I believe he said that more than 50%, and the number might have been higher, but more than 50% of the players in baseball were juicing. So in a way, though, and so obviously it included pitchers as well as batters. So in a way, though, it was almost a level playing field. So certainly nothing like cycling, nothing like, Lance Armstrong juicing, because all the cyclists were juicing. I mean,
right. So, but it's the same theory. It's the same theory. It does ruin the numbers, because how about the players that weren't juicing? There's a tremendous inequity for those guys, and how bitter must they feel? Yeah, and how about guys like McGuire getting jobs in baseball, precious jobs in baseball?
Well,
I don't know
what then that's but then you have to extend that to everything. Then you have to say, well, what about the recovered addict who turned his life around? Does he deserve a job if he's doing the right thing? What about, a guy went to prison for whatever it was, fraud, robbery, car theft.
Right. I understand.
It's like, hey, listen, if the guy's on the straight and narrow, do you say he doesn't deserve the job?
I understand.
It's all about, you're either gonna cut off second chances anywhere and everywhere, or you're gonna have to look at it like that, because certainly McGuire, believe me, if McGuire was snubbing people, and being arrogant about what happened and continuing to deny it, he wouldn't have that job in baseball.
Right.
So,
well, that brings us to Pete Rose. Do you think Pete Rose should be separate with all of these guys, or the Hall of Fame? Can you separate what we went through? He's the manager, betting on his own team, but and as we once talked about, it's when you're not betting, the days you're not betting, it's like you're tipping off bookies that you don't have enough confidence to bet.
Well, you know what? So unfortunately, with that, part of it has to do with the rules. Those were the rules. But actually, you know what? When McGuire and Sosa and Bonds were breaking those records, actually steroids in baseball, when those substances were not illegal.
That's true.
Okay, even
that's
creatine.
True, but they were not. But they weren't illegal for baseball per se. But yeah, you're right. Some of the substances.
We don't know if McGuire was using steroids. He was using andro, which is now illegal. But it was actually a legal substance. Might still be, I don't know. But it was a legal substance then. It was not illegal in baseball. And he didn't hide it. It was in his locker. Reporters saw it. And, I mean,
we also talked about Canseco's book, where Canseco said they would get shots in the ass before game time right in the locker room.
It's true. But, he said...
And no one has ever disproved anything Canseco said in that early book.
Yeah, it's true. And I remember he was met with not only like from the general public. I mean, I remember all on the sports talk radios. He was one show he called in, and Boomer Esiason, he and this guy Craig Carton, they do morning drive time show on WFAN, which is one of the two sports radio stations we have here in New York. And as soon as Canseco got on, I mean, Esiason attacked him, and And Canseco said, "Hey, listen, I'm out of here. Goodbye." So, you know, and I'm sure Esiason felt pretty good about himself. Oh, I showed him, but you know, I it's funny. I wonder what Esiason would say now about that. I wonder if he knew then what we know now. I wonder if he would have approached it differently.
Well, Esiason doesn't appear to be the brightest light on the set. Esiason, a couple of weeks ago, comes down. I can't think of the player that went out on maternity.
Daniel Murphy. Yes, I know.
Daniel Murphy,
I know.
the Met.
Yes.
Right. And he comes down on him for maternity leave, which is part of the major league contract now. And he degrades him.
And he said his wife should have had a C-section, and so this way he wouldn't, so they can plan the birth. And yes, I know. Well, you know what? I mean,
that in itself
is a dinosaur. He's a dinosaur.
Right.
He really is. He's, he knows his football, but his human perspective is still in the dinosaur era.
Right. Right. And yet he continues to work. He continues because he's popular with that kind of mindset.
Follow the money.
That's Wayne Unger's answer to everything, and you're right.
He works with this other guy, Craig Carton, who I think is a moron. People think he's funny. He's like, he's very like, he's sort of like got a little bit of Howard Stern in him with getting the girls on and this and that, and he's, so, I mean, it's not a show that I listen to in the morning. I actually, I don't turn on sports radio in my van till, because, I drive a lot for work. I don't turn on sports radio till 10 o'clock. So, what can I say, I don't listen to either of the sports radio stations in the morning.
Who was your favorite announcer growing up?
My favorite announcer growing up.
Any sport?
I probably didn't. Growing up when I was young, I didn't have one. But you know what? I learned, as I got older, I learned to appreciate. You're going to think I'm crazy. I learned to appreciate Phil Rizzuto.
Oh, before the very end, right, with Rizzuto?
Oh, yeah. I mean, yes. I mean, but he was still, doing the old Huckleberry and like the cannoli thing and, hey, I'm getting out of here. I want to beat the traffic. I want to get over the GW Bridge. I'll see you. I'm not working past the seventh inning. He, that whole shtick thing. But you know what? He was a homer, no doubt about it. He was a homer, but he knew what he was. He knew his baseball. He knew what he was talking about.
I remember listening to him when he first. They released him in 1956 on Old Timers Day. That's how the Yankees. That was their corporate mindset. They embarrassed him in front of all these old guys, and the Yankees would have great Old Timers Day. You'd bring back old Yankee stars, it would be unbelievable. And they embarrassed him. And a year later, they hired him back as an announcer. Red Barber was working with Mel Allen, and the three of them did the Yankees. And they really tried to bring Kubek and Richardson into the fold. They had them doing a lot of the dugout stuff, and great Yankee announcer. He was, and before the shtick took over, he was very good. He had that nice, that rhythmic voice. That he was easy to listen to, and just a regular guy, unpretentious.
Yes. And Kubek ended up getting a national gig. Actually, he used to, we used to have baseball games on Saturday afternoon on NBC. And Kubek,
and in those days,
that gig.
And in those days, around the country, they didn't have none of this cable stuff. That was a big thing. That NBC thing was Leo DeRocher did that for a while. Dizzy Dean did that for many years. That was a big gig. And as far as sports books are concerned, Kubek, who played on that great 61 team where Roger Maris broke the record, Becky and all that, probably is the greatest team I ever saw growing up. We had 3 catchers. He hit more than 20 home runs, Vera, Howard, and Blanchard. Just a terrific team. Clete Boyer at third.
Funny, I read an essay online not too long ago about that 61 team and how they were saying this person. I wish I could remember the points a little better, but they said it was nowhere near the greatest team of all time.
Well, I can tell you that Boyer was about as good a fielding third baseman as anybody.
He was fantastic.
And I can tell you that Kubek was very solid.
When Kubek went down, I think it was 62, or maybe it was 63. It was one of those,
right? They back.
They shifted Boyer over to shortstop, and he played a great shortstop, and they had Phil Linz playing third base. And they were solid there. So.
Yeah, Boyer was tremendous defensively. And you had Skowron and or Pepitone at first base. And
both good defensive first basemen and solid hitters.
Richardson was a terrific second baseman and came up big in the World Series, won the MVP in the World Series once. Still holds some hitting records. An outfield, they were playing a lot of left. Lopez playing a lot of left. Howard was a tremendous catcher. Blanchard on the bench. Nobody got hurt. They didn't have to use guys like the Maestri and Billy Gardner, I think.
What? And that was luck. And that was one of the things I remember.
That was luck. All right.
They didn't have a deep bench. They were lucky. They were fairly healthy that year. But they had. Listen, they had Whitey Ford. They had Ralph Terry.
They had Bob Turley got hurt. They had Stafford. Stafford came up from nowhere, and he was older than he said he was. Stafford did well.
Another old guy that came through for them. Bud
Arroyo?
Daly, I think. Bud Daly.
Yeah, but they had Bud Daly, and
he had one.
That was another. I remember when they got him. They were using Kansas City as a farm club, basically the Kansas City A's, and it was like cherry picking for those guys. And they got Bud Daly, but Bud Daly didn't really do that great as a Yankee. But they had Whitey Ford. They had Whitey Ford pitching too.
He went 25 and 4 that year.
Pardon me?
He in 61. Whitey Ford went 25 and 4.
Right. Oof. Wow. I didn't realize. I didn't remember that. Yeah.
So.
But for anybody who said that it wasn't one of the greatest teams of all time, I'll tell you one of the greatest teams too is the Milwaukee Braves of 58, 57, 58. They were incredibly deep, especially in 58. They unbelievably deep. Covington, and Pafko, and Torrey, and Frank Torrey, not Joe Torrey, but Frank Torrey, his brother platooning with Adcock and Red Shandings. Just really a terrific team. But Matthews at third, Aaron in right, Billy Bruton. I used to call him Billy Bruton, playing center field. So I got to give my Yankee thing. Now, appearing uncomfortably zoned, number 32, Wayne Unger. Number 32.
Bob.
I had to pick a number. What's your number one?
Number 30, number 32. Well, you know what?
That was Ellie's number.
That was also Sandy Koufax's number.
Right, and it was also Jimmy Brown's number, and they all three won the MVPs or Cy Youngs at the same time. Ellie had and they all three won number 32 in those days. The golden age of sports. Will it be the same? Probably not, because kids never again. I'm reading a book, Wayne, that you might appreciate. I read it, and when I travel first class. Greyhound. To me, that's first class. I don't have to fly. I just sit there. I let them drive. So I'm reading a book called The Glory Years, and it's supposedly written by Frank Gifford, but I can't think of his the writer that wrote it. It was about the 58 championship gold New York Giants against the Baltimore Colts, and how that game changed the sport, changed football. It just made the difference in terms of putting football right up there, and the characters that played in that. And I'm 12 years old at this time, and an avid New York sports teams, and especially the New York Giants before the Jets came in. First Jets with the Titans and all that stuff, but how Charlie Connolly and Frank Gifford and Robustelli and Modulewski and Rosie Greer, Rosie Brown, Ray White Tech, all these great guys for playing the Baltimore Colts with Johnny Unitas and Raymond Berry and all that. And it was different. These guys were regular human beings playing ball. They weren't insulated. They lived in the neighborhoods. They walked with the people. They drank a lot. Gifford is talking about how I had no idea that alcohol was such a prevalent part. You know, a lot of beer, a lot of partying in New York with these guys. I mean, just old-fashioned drinkers. So, yeah, it won't be the same. We won't have another golden age of sports, that's for sure.
And these guys, don't forget, they worked. They also had jobs in the off season.
Absolutely.
They worked, you know, I mean, there were guys that worked at UPS. Baseball players worked UPS in the off season, and you know, a guy like me, if I would have worked at UPS, I could have been working side by side with a major league player.
Absolutely, and out where we lived in Jackson Heights, on Astoria Boulevard at 90th Street, there was a market that, if I'm not mistaken, it's the same market that, I can't think of the guy's name, long Polish last name, went to school with me, Janikowski or something. His dad owned that market. At one time, and I remember going in there and seeing Carl Furillo. Oh, he owned that supermarket for a while in the off season, and there's frickin' Carl Furillo. I must have been 10 years old. 1955 wins the World Series, buys the supermarket or something, and he's in his white apron. You know, supermarket in those days, the supermarket guy was clean white apron. And there is frickin' Carl Furillo in the neighborhood grocery store. And he worked doing construction. Dusty Rhodes did construction. All these guys, the football players especially. And they were World War II vets, a lot of them. And there was that era of your early 50s and what have you, and guys coming back from the war. They were a serious bunch of people. You know, the Hank Bowers of the world who...
well, think about Ted Williams. Think about him. He missed major league time, not only in World War II, but also in the Korean War.
Absolutely.
I mean,
two chunks of his prime, his early prime and his middle to late prime. he would have hit 600 home runs. Well, maybe not 6, but
I mean, he did hit 500, I believe.
He hit 400. Oh, home runs, yes.
I think he
yes,
hit like
he did.
530 something.
I don't know that number. I don't remember the exact numbers, but I think he did hit 500 home runs. And there's a guy who hit the last guy to hit 400. Unbelievable hitter, really. Really great.
I'm looking at it now. Okay, his first full season was 39. Okay, and so he missed the 43, 44, and 45 season, and he missed basically he missed all of the 52 season. He played 6 games, and in the 53 season he played 37 games. And he hit the ground running. So, I mean, at the age of 20, you know, he hit 327 and, you know, with 31 home runs and 44 doubles. So he had 521 home runs. So, I mean. And
missing 4 or 5 years.
Let's say he missed 4. Yes. Let's say he missed 5 years. So, yeah, he easily would have had, you know, based on that, well over 600. He probably would have been almost close. He would have been close to 700, and the same thing with the hits. Probably would have had another 1,000 hits or close to it. Although he wouldn't have. You know why? Ted Williams never had 200 hits in a season because he walked so much.
Because he walked a lot. He walked so much. You could not strike him out looking. If Ted says it's a strike, I remember the story. Some umpire, the catcher complains because he calls Ted, he gives him a walk, first base, and the catcher says that was a ball. He says if that was a strike. He says if that was a strike, Ted would have swung at it.
Yeah.
Ted Williams thought it was a strike, a ball. I think it's a ball.
I'm looking at it now on the computer. He had 6 seasons with an on-base average of more than 500. His lifetime.
Holy shit!
His lifetime OBP was .482. So.
Whoa.
You know, just amazing.
That alone, and now with the new combined OBP and slugging percentage, has to be as high as anybody's in the majors.
Oh yeah, well here, they have that number here. His lifetime OPS is 1.116. Okay.
I mean that's up there with Babe, I'm sure.
Yeah, his lifetime slugging was .634. So that says it all. Yeah, it was just like an amazing hitter. Hitter.
I had this thought about Phil Rizzuto. Phil Rizzuto made one of the greatest calls in Maris's 61st home run. He just said that he just had a great call. Red Barber was on TV and Rizzuto on radio, or vice versa, and they both made excellent calls, and I wouldn't begin to imitate them in any way, but Rizzuto, one of Rizzuto's best moments of that, and it wasn't anything flashy. You just got to let the crowd take it over. And hey, nice chatting with you, huh?
Same here, Ralph.
All right, I love it, and we talked about this. You're going to be a regular part of this, and we're going to expand it. We're going to tell the audience about your buddy who you ran into, and we tried to get him on tonight.
Okay, my friend Vinny Riccici, New York Vinny. He was a sports and rock and roll DJ out in San Francisco in the early to mid-'90s. Then he shifted over Seattle, did sports radio out there, did very involved with the Mariners, was also very involved with getting Safeco Field built and keeping the Mariners in Seattle. And he not long ago moved over to Pittsburgh, and he was with their sports. He was on there with the Fan. He was they had the Vinny and Cook show, and he did that for a while. And they had a change in general managers and programming directors, and he found himself caught up with the new shift. And but he's an automobile expert. He does a car review show called Drive Time Radio.
Wow.
All around knowledgeable, very knowledgeable, sports, music, cars, very, very interesting. And the funny thing is, and I mentioned this to him the other day when we met up, because his family lives on Staten Island. I said, it's funny. I met you in speech class. He wasn't in the same grade as me. He was a year behind, but we used to have to go into speech class. I said, it's amazing how I met you in speech class and you became a DJ.
Right. And your voice, I can't imagine you having a speech impediment of any kind.
I had a lisp as well.
Really?
Yes.
Wow. So give New York City some kudos. They came through with a little therapy.
Yeah, I think it was, what was that they used to tell us to do? They used to tell us, touch your nose with your tongue. That was the exercises we did in speech class.
Oh.
Curl your tongue,
Well,
so,
you can make a good living touching your eyebrows with your tongue in California. That's
without a doubt.
Sure.
Yes.
But what do I know about that? I've got one of those little things to keep my tongue just where it should be. But there have been stories.
I'm just
hey,
thinking
it's
about
all
it.
anecdotal. I don't know. I don't know life. What do I know? But I do know that you can certainly make friends just by sitting there and trying that.
There's an old joke. This guy, goes into this bar and he has a drink and he sits down and there's this guy at the end of the bar, and this guy really isn't good looking at all. And every night this guy leaves with a gorgeous woman. And one night he says to the bartender, he says, how does he do it? He goes, I don't know. He's not much of a talker or anything. He just sits there and licks his eyebrows, and then the girls go with him.
Yeah.
So
okay. You got to laugh because it's funny. That's the way it is. All right, I am going to work on an Irish muscle I can, Wayne.
okay.
I'll try. Exercising is the first exercise I've had in a long time, but I'm the best. So, thanks for being here. We're going to try to get your buddy in New York, Vinny. That's definitely a future guest. And Wayne, I will implore you to implore all your friends and implore again my audience to keep your humor dry, keep your dreams wet, keep your kids out of military recruiting stations, and keep your kids off the laps of clerics that wear dresses, and most importantly, keep on keeping on. See you later, guys.
Have a good night.